Oh, okay. All right. For those in the live streamed world, this is another episode in our software design meetings series. We are talking about our symbolic neural net framework. We are in the late stages of getting ready for another release, and we will be working on all kinds of interesting details, I think, today. Let's see. I think Tally had something he wanted to show first. Do you want to go ahead and do that?
Sure. I'll share my screen. Okay. So Jeremy got back to me with icons since the last meeting we had, which was also Twitch streamed, I think. So if anyone is in the audience there who remembers us designing those icons, you can now see what they actually look like.
I want to see what they look like. Oh.
So we've got graph, uninitialized and initialized, chain, uninitialized and initialized, and then function with non-learnable function, and then learnable function, uninitialized and initialized.
So my only comment is, are we sure we don't want the word uninitialized? I think we got to be consistent. I think we need to get Jeremy just for a minute here, just to try and finalize this. I would put the uninitialized thing as a stamp on top of those other icons, just to make it consistent with what we're doing with linear layer.
Oh, what? I've tried that. It looks terrible in my view. So what about the other way around? What if we move uninitialized and linear layer down?
We could. I like seeing it as a sort of dramatic, you can't miss it kind of thing. Let's get Jeremy and see what he has to say. Let's look at the other items that you have here, and hopefully Jeremy can join us in a minute.
For sure. This is something long overdue, and this is let's say you're doing classification, and you know doing MNIST or something. Currently, you'll see the loss decreasing in that little plot in the progress window, but you won't see accuracy. Like you won't see the error rate.
See the picture. See the picture. What is it? What is it? Oh, this is a second plot there.
Yeah.
What's the blue wajimajiggery? Is that some kind of some kind of estimation?
That's validation. So because I specified a validation set here.
Is there?
It would be nice to have a legend.
You got to be careful. Like there's not much room around for legends and things, and also these plots have to be as fast as possible. But I don't disagree. Maybe underneath.
Well, I mean, the question is, what makes it obvious that blue means validation? And I don't even understand what I'm exactly seeing there. What is the error rate on the validation set? Or I don't understand. What?
Yeah. So first, let me do this again without a validation set. Press backspace.
By the way, that 1M 14 seconds is really funky there. Did you see that?
I did not. Mathematica crashed. Good. Let me try it again. Oh yeah, I was going to show without validation. One minute 53 seconds. You mean that thing?
Yeah, that thing is really not standard and wrong.
What would you prefer?
I don't know, but we have a standard for how to represent that, and it's not that.
Okay.
Okay. Did Jeremy just join us?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, actually, can we go back? Well, Tally, go ahead. Show this just for a second. Well, whatever. We're back to these icons.
One thing at a time.
Icons for a second. So, Jeremy, my only problem with these is, I mean, these icons can clearly get smaller as well. Do we think that there should be more detail in them, or do we think that they have to look like this? It felt like there could be more layers, for example, in that net chain thing. I don't know. What do you think?
It would go wider. It's hard to deal with. I mean,
but
visible
they
arrows.
have to be that size, and they can't be smaller.
they could be smaller, but I don't know that you'd get, you know, maybe one more layer. I could add maybe one more.
All right.
I think it's the perfect number, but
All right. Okay, fine. Then let's leave it. Do we need arrows in the network, in the net graph? Are those relevant? Tally, do you want to comment on that?
we could have arrows, yeah. If Jeremy doesn't think it makes it too cluttered.
Really small ones, I think, would be okay.
All
and the net chain does look like it could be slightly smaller. It looks, I agree, a little big and coarse.
Yeah. All right. Okay. There's two comments. Okay. The real comment though is about the uninitialized thing. We have this inconsistency here between the stamp and the linear layer and the, you know.
Yeah.
I personally like the stamp because I like seeing that, you know, it's really, this is really not a serious thing. It's uninitialized.
I'll give a sense of what the uninitialized stamp looks like when it's on the icons. Let's like take, where's a gray one? What did I do with the gray one?
It's down there.
Okay. Yeah, fine. And then there's an overlay, there's some code I have to get out. Formatting, overlay box, there we go. I mean, it looks gross to my view, to my mind.
I don't know. I mean,
given the arrows clash with the text.
Well, I understand, but I mean, the arrows could get even lighter, for example, in that case. I personally rather like that. I rather like kind of stamping it as uninitialized. You know, this isn't going to work. Jeremy?
I wish we could outline the text a little bit so it wouldn't have to be right on top of these hard lines.
Fine, then do that. I mean, put a platform behind the text.
Oh, you mean like a little box around it? Or
yeah,
what?
just put. You can go ahead and do that right now, Tally. I mean, you could just say background color arrow whatever for the text.
Okay. Yeah,
well, definitely better. Yeah, definitely better. Maybe opacity, or can you do? Yeah, instead of white, do gray level of like 1,0.5.
Do we have to do the same thing on the W then?
I would think so.
Okay, I'll try that out.
Oh, you're on gray too, so you have to be careful with your background color.
Yeah. That's what it will look like.
Well, but you haven't grayed down the.
That's the wrong font, as it happens. Look, this font is a much narrower font. What is that?
Okay, listen, it's going to work, but by putting some kind of background color on the uninitialized word, we're going to make it work.
Do we know what color that background is going to be, though? If it's inheriting from panel, that's platform dependent.
We don't know what the color is, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's roughly gray.
It's gray. It's just different shades on different platforms.
Windows, it's white? Isn't it like pretty much white?
I don't think so. Well, I don't know, but I think nobody on this call probably is using a Windows machine.
Yeah.
I do have a Windows machine for DQ stuff, and I'll check, but I think it's white.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, look, I think we can conclude this here. Can we? I mean, what you've got is how should we conclude this? Should Jeremy send you some specs? Should you send your code to Jeremy and he can just tweak it himself, or what's the right way to do this?
I can send him the uninitialized. I'm not even wedded to that font or anything. So I can send him, although it's nice that this one is very small, I can send him this code here, and then he can even generate me SVG or generate me graphics objects for.
We can just edit this code, I think. I mean,
Jeremy, yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Just give it to him in a nicely packaged form. For each of those icons, just give him a piece of code.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, now you were showing one more graphical thing.
Yeah, where was it? Other notebook. Yes.
These are nice though. These icons look nice. These are definitely a nice, consistent improvement.
That's a weird aspect ratio.
Which, that panel?
This panel, yeah. are they typically this shape, or 'cause in this case, I'd go, plots to the right or something, or 2-column for the
Yeah, the thing that's new that's made it get this bad is that we've gradually been accumulating useful things to report here, like batch size, method, and now there are 3 more. There's batch error, round error, right? So we got more.
Can we go 2-column?
The thing about that is that this error rate only sometimes happens. It doesn't happen for regression.
No, I mean 2-column for your labels, your text.
At the top. You're
sure, yeah, we
suggesting.
could do that.
Yeah,
And then what?
Okay.
Then you would put the 2 plots next to each other rather than stacked, or what?
Maybe just a little bit bigger. They wouldn't. It's already wider than the text. It wouldn't have to get much bigger.
They would benefit from being bigger. I mean, these things you want to see detail for these guys.
Well, fine. So that's a good suggestion. So I mean, we just break that into 2 columns, hopefully in some consistent place.
Okay. Yeah, maybe under time remaining.
Fine. I mean, it should just be a multi-column. I mean, that doesn't have to be, yeah. Okay, how are we going to resolve that time elapse thing? It's definitely not right. It should be 1:26 or something. I don't know. We've used that in other places. I just don't know. Somebody in the units group would know that. I mean, worst case, take a screenshot and ask Michael Trott. He probably would know.
Okay.
You want me to, why don't you just ask him and he can send it to whoever. I mean, probably Eric Weinstein probably has. Take a screenshot of the whole.
This code has to be extremely optimized. So it's not going to use, not going to call out to.
No, I understand that. It's just a formatting question. Do we want to use 1: whatever, or do we want to use, no.
Who? Michael Trott.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just leave that open and then I'll send it later.
Fine. Okay. All right. Was there something? Okay, you were going to show that thing about the validation sets, and we.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Validation set goes to scaled. So I can put a little legend. It'll probably be like maybe a dot.
What is that? What is that random dot just hanging?
Well, that's the very first one. So we can't join it with anything because it's the first one.
Okay, but what is this?
This is the accuracy, I mean the error rate and the loss, but not on the training set, on the validation set.
Why? So it's less good on the validation set because it's never seen those things before.
Right. It's begun to overfit.
But so it's pretty interesting. But why are there more data points in the training? Why are there more horizontal data points in the training thing than there are in the validation thing?
We get a measurement every batch, and there's several batches per round, but we only do a validation run once per round.
Okay.
And it's often quite expensive.
But we're not indicating the rounds. I mean, it would be more consistent to indicate the rounds by a dot in the orange curve as well.
Okay. Like 1 per round?
Well, yeah. I mean, is it showing the dots in the blue curve are at the times of rounds?
Yes, they are.
Is that correct?
So
10,
yeah, obviously.
Right. So the point is that the orange curve will bounce up and down in between those round endings. But I think to be consistent, you should show the round endings, although you might not want to have a great big thing with tons of dots in it. I mean, maybe the dots are less dramatic color.
I'm not sure because there is no single round measurement of the loss. There's only a whole bunch that you could average together, but we don't average them together.
Okay, I understand. You don't do the averaging. All right, but the question is there any way of capturing the fact that that's a validation set, that the blue is a validation thing?
Yeah. I can do a little. How do you want me to do it? Like a little dot with a line in it, but it has to be smallish.
Well, I mean, we have a standard way of doing legends.
None of that stuff works in here. It's got to be 10 times faster than ordinary plotting code for it not to slow down training. I can't call out to ordinary plotting code.
Okay, well, but fine. But then let's take a look at, okay, what are we trying to communicate? We're trying to say, could you go back and generate that again?
Yeah.
We're fundamentally trying to say training set versus validation set. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And why is the error rate in green? Why are both of them blue for the validation, and why is one orange and one green for the other thing?
They could both be orange. But I thought it'd be nice if error looks different from loss. But yeah, they could both be orange.
Well, okay, but if they're both, listen, if they're both, I mean, to me, it's like, but the validation error, why are the blues the same and the orange?
No, I understand the inconsistency. Why don't we just make them both green, orange?
I think it looks nice to have them in different colors, but it seems to me that if we can have a pair of colors and another pair. Jeremy, do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, some hue shift from those two colors. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we'd have to go more reddish for the top, and we could go bluish, but maybe a different shade of blue for the bottom. So they'd pair like a warms and cools.
Okay.
Well, so you mean pair the things which are the validation ones?
No, I mean, so I'd connect the two lines in the plot. So kind of a blue with a green plot. I don't think it matters that the validations are the same color.
We do have to do.
Sorry, wait a second. Blues with the what?
Well, I was thinking for the loss plot, we could go maybe reddish for the validation, and for the error rate, we could go more bluish.
The one benefit of having the identical colors for the validation is that it means we only need one legend we can put between them.
Yeah, you could definitely pair them up. And honestly, the rounds could just be their ones, right? Aren't they? They're in sync between the two?
They're in sync, yeah.
Yeah. So you could have one rounds and at the bottom a single legend with. So we're back to one color for error rate.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to do? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've sent you an email, so you could do both ways. Like if we share the validation, or if we have two different validations. I don't mind.
Maybe if Jeremy has a moment, maybe he could just try and give you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that right now.
Okay. All right. What is this last thing? The performance goal thing? Is that something else?
Yeah. This is just I think it's pretty uncontroversial. So there's optimizations you can use that privilege speed over memory, and this is
uncontroversial. Yes. What?
Yeah, it's particularly important for GPUs where memory is at.
Yeah, it obviously seems sensible. I didn't know we didn't have a performance goal for NetTrain.
Yeah, I mean, the one question is for like classify. There's different forms of memory. There's like, we should look what they are to sort of.
I know we just put those in. There's training. There's all kinds of things there. Let's see, what is it? Training speed. Actually, I think there's if you look at the latest version, there's even more stuff.
Okay, because we have training speed and training memory rather than speed and memory.
Okay.
We can't affect,
but everything is you're doing training, so why isn't it just memory and speed? In the case of NetTrain.
Okay.
As a courtesy, why don't you accept training speed and training memory as well? But we won't document that.
All right. Cool.
Okay. Anything else that we need to see your screen for?
Nope.
Okay. Somebody on our live stream is pointing out that we should consider colors that are friendly to colorblind folk. Not sure that's the most critical thing to see colors on. I think there are other cases where it really matters what the colors are. Here, the colors are really mostly decorative. We do try to be careful about that when the colors really mean something.
And also, the validation is pretty much guaranteed to be, the validation loss or error rate is guaranteed to be bigger than the training loss error rate. So
I see. So they're distinguish.
You can always tell which is which. Yeah.
Okay. What are we mainly digging into? And Jeremy, let us know if you have something to show. Or
sure.
Okay. What are we digging into here?
Okay. So the next thing is with the Ness Encoders and Decoders.
Okay.
So maybe I can share my screen.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, do you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so these are, unfortunately, they're not very fleshed out yet. But we are going to, so just for the context, obviously, that people know, in Ness Encoders, currently there's one page for them, and we want to split them off.
So this is the same issue that we've had with classifiers.
Exactly. It's a similar, yeah, very similar issue.
But it's not the same. It's got big differences, but the problem is the same.
Right.
Yeah. So basically, we wanted to get a design for these pages before asking the documentation team to implement them.
Could we get Brian Van Vertelu here, because this is going to directly I'm asking for somebody to go find Brian.
Okay, so I guess whilst we're waiting for Brian, there was one issue we want to discuss right in the beginning, which is the question. So at the moment, the syntax is that you have to have a list form. So like this net encoder, then image, etc. So the one thing we were thinking of was that for documentation purposes, it's much cleaner if we can get rid of the idea of the list.
Well, can you show, Sebastian, can you show one of the complicated encoders that you...
But we put that in a list for a reason, which is we expected to have options as the second argument, didn't we? Hey, we've got heavy breathing of some kind.
Sorry, maybe it's me.
Fix themselves.
Seb, could you show like a complicated example, one of the new things? Yeah.
Okay, so like for example, like so there's about 8 new encoders coming in 11.3, and lots of them are audio based. So this is one example. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger. Might be a bit small.
1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay. So Tally, while Stephen is gone, there was one question I had was about if we want an argument or to reserve an argument for the type that gets returned for this thing. If there's a net array one day or numeric array or whatever else, you would basically need a positional argument to control what you want to return.
I mean, that applies to all encoders. Oh, I see what you're saying. So that's why you would want to maintain the list syntax.
Maybe.
I think that when that day arrives, they should all omit raw arrays, and that it's up to people to use normal to unpack them to lists.
And net array? I guess it doesn't really matter. It's not going to be that different. Putting them directly into
a dynamic object. I don't think net array is a carrier of data. I think net array is it's what's used in net function. It's the symbolic tracer that builds the tape when you do autodiff. And and it's also used as as a wrapper for ND arrays when you're doing a custom callback based layer. But it's not static data really,
So I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Because for general training syntax that we were thinking of supporting for reinforcement learning and whatnot, you basically need to change the arrays yourself.
You need to change.
And also, it's nice to have an actual array type that can live on GPU, etc.
Yeah. I agree. It's mutable. It's like a mutable thing. But NetEncoders would never produce those. Why would they produce those?
Because it can be a lot more efficient.
Hi guys, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Hello.
Right.
Okay, so did we get Brian here?
I mean, there's quite a bit to talk about before he arrives. So
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what we want to discuss today is one is the design of these pages. One is discussing the audio encoders. They've got some common options, and we haven't accepted these names yet. We're not sure what to do with them for various options. And then the last thing is also a design question about
the whole business about some of them being symbols and some of them being strings is pretty weird.
No, Brian has to finish his current meeting. It's going to be about at least 15 minutes, guys.
Sure,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we can keep them as all strings.
Well, I just want to understand again with this. Are
What
these?
is offset? We can't use offset as a symbol because that's a wrapper, isn't it?
Yeah, it's some complicated wrapper for something completely different. It's completely inappropriate for this.
Yeah, fine.
What's it, an offset? Okay, hold on a second. Okay. Okay, so what's the issue? The issue is how to give those parameters. And
There's several issues.
What?
There's several issues. So one is we're putting forward formally the idea of dropping that list in NetEncode.
I understand. But what I was saying before I had to go was that we had previously wanted to package those things in a list so that for two reasons. One, well, I think we imagined that we would need options, but what you're saying is, I mean, the question is, what information do you have to provide to specify a NetEncoder? And you would say, well, why don't you just provide the whole NetEncoder object, right? Whereas I think before we were trying to make it so that you could just provide that list, and that list will be enough to specify the whole NetEncoder.
Yeah. And it turns out when we wrote the documentation, it's way clearer to actually use the explicit wrapper NetEncoder because it means there's something people can chase in the documentation. Whereas if you just have this list that's floating around, it's like net chain, blah, 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 input goes to a magical list with some strings in it.
Well, I mean, you're addressing the question of how you package up the documentation, and that this page is, this is a different design because we haven't had to do, if you look at a format page, for example, it's just keyed by the name of the format.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
No, I don't mean that format. If you look,
yeah, I know.
Let's go to GIF. GIF.
GIF, yeah.
Right. So there, I mean, this page is of a different structure.
But you change topics. So you're not talking about these new pages. We were talking before about dropping them.
Let's go back. But your argument for why you want to do this is partly because of the pages.
Not really, no. The argument for why we want to drop the list is that it's never been useful. Like there's no place that it makes anything clearer. It just makes.
Can we try to remember why we put it in the first place? And actually, could you show me back on a page which just the main NetEncoder page? Let's take a look at the diversity of NetEncoders.
Okay, so these ones don't include the new ones, the new 8 ones that we've got. So scalar, image.
Yeah, look, the point about it is those things in a sense qualify. Let's take tokens, for example. That list in effect qualifies the tokens thing. It's almost, I mean, in other places, sometimes we use a rule, tokens arrow, whatever. I don't particularly like that in this case. But the whole point is that it is, the list of tokens is qualifying the tokens.
I mean, sure, I would see it differently because tokens has got a whole bunch of knobs and whistles on it, and we don't show them in this list because otherwise this table would be way too cluttered. It's got like three different arguments and like two different options, I think.
Yeah.
So, because you can say ignore case, you can give a splitting, you can give us like information about how it should tokenize the input. I mean, there is a default.
All right, what is the bigger picture of NetEncoders? I mean,
they're functions, right? That's what they are.
They're functions that take arbitrary data and
produce tensors of numeric tensors or something.
Right, but they are functions that have, okay, could we go back? Could we look at the new NetEncoder page with its various new, the draft of the NetEncoder page?
Sure.
No, I mean not that one. I mean the main NetEncoder page. Just go to the main. Go to the draft of the main NetEncoder page.
The CVS doc version.
Oh, the CVS doc. Okay, I see. Sorry. Let's do the stock open. NetEncoder. Is it just that tally?
Yeah, that's right. What is that doc open thing coming from? Is that a utility of yours?
Yeah.
That's useful. What's that?
Yeah, in init.m. Tally wrote this thing.
That's
very
very
useful.
useful. When Brian joins us, could you feed it to him and he can give it to everybody else? Seems
Sure.
like an obviously useful thing.
It doesn't even need the string, honestly. It just, you can work on a symbol as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. That's all kinds of modern conveniences. Fine. Okay. So let's look at this. So what you're telling me is that tokens thing. So scroll down on this page. Does it describe the options for the tokens case here?
It does.
Yeah, this is
Nice,
fairly
man.
grotesque.
And there's a little grammar for how you specify the. Oh wait, that's characters. That's not tokens. But like, yeah, I mean, it's obvious that each of these needs its own page.
Yep, I agree. Okay.
And essentially, the non-list version it's not a gimmick as such, but it's like I don't
Look,
think
there are two different kinds of things here. There is the immediate qualification. Tokens without the spec is meaningless, isn't it?
No, it's not, because you just get the word list, like English word list, as the default.
Not the-
As the default token list.
Can you scroll up
Sure.
on that page?
To
Scroll up to see the word tokens. Okay, hold on. Tokens. Oh, I see. Encode common English words in strings. In a string, as integers, probably. Should say.
yeah, maybe.
In a string. Yeah. Okay. I see. What's bothering me is this mixture between the option specification of stuff and these raw, the raw positional thing. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of somewhat arbitrary, but then the same way that it's arbitrary for certain layers, like in convolution, I think you can give up to 3 arguments, and then after that, they're just options. And that's a somewhat arbitrary line that we decided to draw.
Well, okay, so one approach to that is to give that an option name, but as a courtesy, allow it to be given as an argument as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, alternatively, and what would make me probably happier is to continue to support that list form, okay? But take the options out of the list form and have the possibility of having that thing which is given in the list form be also specified using options or an association.
Okay.
That makes sense? So
Yeah.
in the case of image with a size there, you can either just use image. You just stopped sharing.
Sorry, I got cut off.
You want to share again?
Oh, sorry, stop sharing. Okay.
The thing is, that doesn't make me any happier because it would technically be more verbose than it is now, not less verbose. Because you'd have to introduce that association as a second argument, and that means an extra 4 characters. And
Well, it doesn't need to be an association. You can just have them, at the top level. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think.
Okay, why not go the whole
I'm not a big fan of things that look like options but are actually strings. And I mean, things like image size. Sigh. Look, the problem is you want to use things like image size to represent the width height thing there, I suspect.
Yeah. You know what? We could turn these into system symbols. Here's what we can't do. We can't afford to document them with the same level of rigor, at least for this version, as we document all the others, all the ordinary things that
will be crazy. You do not want an image NetEncoder, an audio MFCC NetEncoder. That would be crazy.
What do you mean? No, I don't mean like that. No, you completely misunderstood me. I'm saying I'm happy with the idea that we turn all these strings into pure symbols, like a number of.
No way. There's all kinds of weird nonsense that will be specific to some particular, favorite NetEncoder for, smells or something.
Yeah, that's not gonna. Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so they have to remain strings then.
Well, they don't have, yeah. So what it could be though is that they're just positional arguments, and we have a string name for it.
No. Look, the issue is that a small number of these things happen to be symbols like window size. Well, window size is not right either. It's not.
Yeah.
That's not right. That has to do with the size of a window on your screen.
Yeah, fine. That's okay.
That is playing fast and loose.
Okay,
here.
sample rate is there, that for sure.
Yes, that is there. Look, I think the right thing is to make them all strings, and a few of them accept them as symbols. And it is possible, because there's nothing special about sample rate here relative to all the other types of features of this net encoder.
Yeah, that can be a string. I mean, it's actually the way it's implemented now. If a symbol happens to be named the right thing, it'll work. It was not documented like that, but so you could use sample rate just because it happens to have the right symbol.
Right.
Work.
Let's make them all strings. I think that's a good principle.
Okay, fine. And okay, so then let's talk about what the net encoder. Okay, so fundamentally, make a string name also for the thing that could be given as a list form. Okay.
Okay. So you mean, okay, so like, sorry, we have image.
Yeah, so in that case, I would have a quotes image size.
Okay, fine. So
that is a string.
Image size, and then some default.
Yeah. Automatic or whatever it is. Probably automatic.
And then in the usages, we drop the second and third usage, and we just say as tensors, and we leave it up to the notes to say what the default image size is.
I'm sorry, what are you saying?
I see. So this thing here.
No.
no.
Don't delete that. Don't delete that. Undo.
What?
Undo.
Oh, that undo is not working. I don't know what's wrong.
Okay. Oh, that's because it doesn't work when you're using docu tools like this.
So what I'm suggesting is, if we move away from these positional arguments, which I think is fine, Stephen, what if we just formalize this, right? You can provide any of these as positional, just as long as it's in the order of that table there.
No way. Insane.
Okay,
Absolutely
well then what?
Insane. So what I'm
How do we
suggesting.
grandfather in?
Okay, I'm suggesting very simple. Okay, that second usage is a list usage. List, image, comma, size in a list. Okay, net encoder of open list. Sebastian?
Okay, I see. It's an encode of open list and then size.
It's the wrong font, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, exactly the same as it was before,
Okay.
right? Identical to what it was before. And that
what is
happens
this?
to be equivalent to a net encoder of quotes image, comma, quotes image size, arrow, whatever, as an arrow the size thing.
So what does this list give us?
Cleanliness. It is a qualification. It's just pure design cleanliness.
Seriously,
Okay.
what? Yeah, okay.
I'll tell you what it gives us, okay? It could be that second element there needs to be something that has the structural form of one of those things that's a string, arrow, blah. Do you get what I'm saying?
I see. So like a rule.
Yeah, it could happen to need to be a rule, in which case you've got an ambiguous syntax otherwise. It's just cleanliness. And then the alternative is, the way we document this, those particular things are just shorthands for people who want to use, where it's just easier, where you only need to give one parameter there, okay? But you could, and this is very similar to the way that we do it for form object and interpreter and so on. You could give the full version with rules for everything. Does that make sense?
I wish we could kill that thing.
Which thing? Why do you want to kill it? It's fine. What's wrong with it?
Well, when you have to type it out as many times as we do, it's actually really annoying.
Type out what? Tally, you're not seriously trying to save yourself 2 characters, are you? Yes, is that what you're doing? What I find frustrating about this is we're so close to having something that acts like other functions, because other functions don't insist that positional arguments are wrapped in a special list, right? To distinguish them. Tally, they're not positional arguments. They're not. This is because this thing is a multifunction, so to speak, right? that isn't, it is a function whose complete operation is being sort of bank switched by its first string argument.
Yeah.
Right? It's really not the same as an ordinary function because you can't document, oh, the second argument is its size. By the way, a comment from our live stream from SwishKA, why is it even called NetEncode? It's not only useful for neural nets, right? Which is an interesting, I mean, is it only useful for neural nets or is it useful for other things?
It's useful for other things. It's wherever you want to get a numeric representation of some non-numeric object.
Although where else, I mean, for example, would it be useful in something like, I don't know, dimension reduction or something? It's probably implicitly used there through the feature
it's implicitly
extractor.
used in all those places, and classify, dimension reduce, anywhere in machine learning where you need this sort of representation, it's always used.
Does Etienne use our NetEncoder?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
So the main advantage also of this thing is that we have very efficient out-of-core loaders. So if you want to import data into Mathematica from images or something, it's vastly faster to do it with this.
Well, so this comment that this is not just useful for machine, for neural nets is in fact true.
Yeah, I think so.
That's true. Yep.
So where else would it be used?
So machine learning in general. So anywhere in machine learning that requires image data or audio data, it will be used.
Although the fact is what it's doing is it's turning everything into numeric tensors.
Exactly. That's all that machine learning can ever use at the moment.
And it doesn't operate on there's a one-to-one correspondence between its inputs and its outputs. So it can't operate on a file and produce 5 different whatevers, tensors. It has to produce one tensor for each input it has. That means it's not really a general purpose import T thing.
Well, wait a second. So I see. So the possibility, the thing you were implicitly suggesting is there are 2 analogies here. One is interpreter and the other is import.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you import an image and in our language it turns into an image, but in principle it could just turn into an array of numbers.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is kind of a numeric interpreter. I think that's the fair way of talking about it.
Yeah, that's a good way of talking about it.
Interesting. So, I mean, it's still a bit messy right now because it's basically you're taking this thing. It's got some color space. It's got it's a little bit. By the way, don't forget that your second line there is wrong. You're representing it. No. In the box at the top.
Oh,
that second one with size is wrong because you've got the description is wrong. The 3 times.
Yeah, fine. Okay, sorry. I mean, these pages will completely rewrite just to get an idea.
I'd like actually to propose something, which is it's stricter than what you're suggesting, Stephen. Like, I'm very happy that you agree that the options could be effectively options to NetEncoder, but I think combining that with this list thing, I'm really against that. What if we allow it, but we don't document it, and instead we change all of our documentation examples to use the explicit thing, which is like NetEncoder image, image size goes to 128.
If you want to, I'm only. You're being a bit hypocritical here because you were the one who was just complaining that it was too long to type. Always an excuse I never really believe in.
It's not that. It's that NetEncode is already encapsulating, and then this list thing is another form of basically pointless encapsulation, syntactic encapsulation. So that's what I'm really against. Is the depth verbosity of it.
Okay, okay, look, the question is it really common to want to specify that image size argument?
Yes, it's very common.
Okay, I think you should provide the simplified form of it. Just like in interpreter, there's a simplified form in the case where you just want to give a default value and, you're going to give a type in a default value. And if you want to give the whole, elaborate thing with hinting and so on and restrictions, then you have to give something more complicated.
What about an arrow instead of a list like that? Image goes
No,
to...
that won't work because it's going to look like the other arguments. I think it's okay.
Ugh, okay. I really, really, really don't like it.
Okay, can we... Okay, yeah, Tally, if I might point it out, you were the one, this is exactly what we had designed before.
No, you forced us to add this extra level of list.
Yes, I did, and I'm glad I did. because now look, we don't have the problem of having, you know, this positional thing that could have some weird misinterpretation. Right?
But
it can still have misinterpretation here,
let's
right?
actually address that. That's the only hard kind of thing that you've adduced to support this.
Yes, the rest of it is pure aesthetics.
That has never happened.
What's
So
never
then
happened?
those encoders and decoders, there's no case where there's an argument to the encoder or decoder that can be confused with an option.
Yeah, right. Okay, it hasn't happened so far. But
Brian's
look,
here.
Tally, if you really want to not document these list forms, I guess it's okay. I think they should be documented if they're a very common form. But I don't think it's critical. Please just consider it further. Okay, I think it's a good idea to have these list forms. Okay, we've got Brian. Do we have Brian here?
I'm here. Hi.
Okay, we are looking at these subsidiary pages for NetEncoders, which we want to break out, much like the classifier pages.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not quite sure, given that we're removing these list forms, I'm not quite sure why we can't just have something like the classifiers where we just say, you know, quotes image, and we put it just like we do for other kinds of subpages like this.
Wait, so certain encoders though require certain arguments, like they're not optional.
Well, which ones?
So, for example, like beam search, it requires you to provide a class list.
Okay,
Same as,
guys,
like,
please, you know, this thing that Tally is making such a fuss about with the just put it in a list. You know, put that thing in a sub list. If it requires that, then okay. I think the way to document this is the following. I think probably that the heading of the page should be CTC beam search, and this should be a net decoder page, and then it should say, then in the usage, it should give, you know, net decoder of CTC beam search, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree. I mean, it's not really any different than what we do for, say, interpreters, where it's just like that and it requires interpreter wrapped around it.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine. Does interpreter have cases where the naked string doesn't do anything and you have to wrap the naked string in something?
Are there pages for these? So you say semantic number, interpreter type. Okay, but I guess we still want a usage if we have.
Well, yes, in this case, we want a usage. So that means it's a differently designed page. But this is roughly, you know, I would think this is roughly what it's going to look like. It's going to say CTC beam search paren NetEncode.
At the top, yeah. But
Exactly
in all other respects, it looks like a function page because it actually is a function that evaluates.
If you want, I mean, you might want one of those summary lines at the top.
What do you mean a summary line?
That one that you were just looking at for the case of whatever that was. What was the thing you were just looking at? Semantic number? Right. So there's a summary line there, number in a standard format on a natural language. I don't know whether such a summary line is useful.
Yeah, that might be good. Because I think it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's useful. But if you have you still want to show like necessary arguments, for example.
Yes, fine. But it's going to need a slightly different format again, because we don't want it to look, I mean, could you go back to your NetEncode page?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just going to need a slightly different design, I think. But it's, for example, that the details section probably should be open by default here, unlike on a function page, just like it was on that semantic, semantic number or whatever it was page.
Okay, fine. Yeah, that makes sense.
So Brian, how do these templates get designed?
Well, the design of the templates doesn't necessarily have to correspond with the final design. For the final design, we would need to get graphic design involved. The template could really just be, if I have some idea of what content you're expecting to be on one of these pages, I can whip up a template pretty quickly.
So why don't you?
Yeah, it sounds like there are some of these written, right? The one we were just looking at is in pretty decent finished form, I assume.
Yeah, and the only difference is that, it's this line at the top. And then what does it say exactly? Not interpreter type.
Can we look back there?
Sure.
So in this case, it would say net decoder. Do we say net decoder type? No, net space decoder, I think.
Oh, net type.
Net decoder type. Yeah, possibly. And then we would say, so if there's a certain amount of boilerplate about data comma prop, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what we've got, is it the case that for every net decoder, net encoder, that you have options and you have properties?
No, only some of them have properties. And most have, some of them don't have options.
Okay, fine. But having those things be separated sections seems like it will be useful in this documentation, yes? Because they all have the same basic structure.
Yeah, options and properties. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so Brian, that's those become two sections for your.
So why don't you put a little section right in there right now so that you can send this to Brian?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
What is it again?
I don't have any idea. I never used the section actually.
Was it a?
No. I mean, it
Yeah,
would be
no,
a section
just to indicate for him where the section is, but I don't know where the section thing is.
Why don't you do like Command 5? Just insert.
I mean,
it.
just put any big cell that will show up.
Okay. Anyway,
So
It's okay. You know what? You could just even if it's just like a text cell that says properties section here. I don't care.
yeah, fine, exactly. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Properties.
Is there only ever one head for these things? So would you get an encoder and a decoder for the same string?
There can be, yes.
Yeah, these are two different page types. Encoders and decoders will be two different page types.
often there will be, there'll be a pair. So there'll be an image encoder and an image decoder, but they'll be
Right,
separate.
but they may have different.
Do you want to link them somehow in that case, in a prominent way?
Yes, I think you should say, okay, so listen, under C also, you should say, you should have a thing that says related encoders, related, and another one related decoders probably. And then a C also. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just copy those.
An encoders page, like a list page. I'm thinking like import-export formats. That.
Yes, absolutely. We need that.
Okay,
we'll need a page. We'll need a guide page, which will link off a neural net or in general machine learning page.
And there's a related decoders as well.
Yeah, related decoders, related encoders, related decoders, and a C also. And the C also will be to functions.
Are these encoders and decoders, are these related enough that could these be combined into a single page?
Let's not. No, they're not that related. I mean, they're like, I want to just address for 1 second the question of in the future, and these are still experimental functions anyway, but the possibility that these become some kind of numeric interpreter thing. Yeah, it's.
Here's why it's not quite an interpreter, is because that might be what an encoder is, but what is a decoder?
What is a decoder? Well, a decoder is a deserializer. I mean, this is like serialization, deserialization.
Yeah, numeric serializer, numeric deserializer.
Except it's not quite serialized. I mean, it's I wonder whether these things are realistically useful elsewhere. Do you think that they are? I mean, because they're turning. I mean, realistically, in many cases, or maybe I'm wrong, you've got a picture of a dog and they're turning it into a random sequence of numbers. Or am I perhaps being unfair that there's more to the
well, I guess there's a few things that it does. So one is that it converts it to numbers, but it also has guarantees of certain type guarantees, like the sizes that you'll get out, the conforming spaces that you'll get out. Like it conforms it to a particular thing, like the color space will be the same, the size will be the same, all of that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, it is an interesting thing to think about generalizing, and I wonder whether the test of that is whether one finds oneself actually wanting to use it. Okay. So first question is does Etienne care about it for other machine learning purposes? And then what other people might care about it? For example, the hashing functions. is it a relevant way of doing hashing?
Not really, because you probably want to hash something that you want to get the actual data that backs the thing, the file, and hash that.
Well, except you might, if you want to make a semantic hash, this is more relevant.
It's true, but I mean, there's semantic hash methods for that, and then it doesn't need this necessarily.
Right.
Well, it would still do this, actually. You're right. Like for semantic hash for images would probably use this. Like it will conform it to a certain thing and then it would hash it.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. Let's see what else. I need to go to something else in a minute. What else is there here that we need to cover?
Craig, you could take a quick look at this plot.
Right.
The legend.
Do you want to share your screen?
Oh, I just sent a chat link if you want to.
Okay.
Oh, that looks really nice, don't you think?
Yeah. Yep.
There's some duplication. I wasn't sure how to handle that, though. I mean, you have loss and error rate on the side, but I don't see. You kind of have to repeat it in the legend.
We could remove it from the side.
That's what I thought. I mean, it's actually useful on the side too.
But I mean, look, the problem is, no, this isn't quite right, because really what it is orange and green are both training and blue is validation.
Yeah. So that's what the legend says.
No, it isn't what the legend says. The legend says loss and error rate.
So yeah. Training loss, training error rate.
No, but validation, it's the wrong, they're different, it's a different concept here.
Maybe we need 4 colors.
Well, what we could do then, if we had 4 colors, is we could stack the pairs of colors and then say training and validation, so that it's the orange, green, whatever country's flag that is, which I don't immediately know, and whatever it is. Do you get what I'm saying, Jeremy?
How would they be labeled? So they're grouped by loss. How would they be labeled?
No. The point is, Jeremy, that the orange and green lines are both. Okay. The
use
top
your
plot is
use your camera.
Loss. What's that?
Use your camera. Because it's complicated to do this. It's like it's a little table we have to make. And
No, it's really simple. Okay. The top panel shows loss for A, the training set, and B, the validation set. Jeremy.
Yep.
Okay. The bottom panel shows A, the the loss, the error rate for the training set and the validation set.
Okay.
Okay.
So 2 legends.
Right. So what I'm suggesting is, no, I'm not suggesting 2 legends. I'm suggesting if the colors, okay, one way to do this that is clearly straightforward is just to make an orange curve. Just make the green curve orange.
Yeah.
Right?
With the legends training set and validation set, then for text.
Yes, exactly. Then that's straightforward.
That makes more sense, I think. Yeah.
Are we happy with orange and blue? Because I just made up that orange and that blue.
Well, as you noticed, Jeremy changed your blue.
Yeah, it was a little too bright, but the other 2 colors were pretty nice.
Okay.
Right. One of our viewers suggests dashed line for validation. I wondered about that, but I don't think there's any particular meaning to that.
The other trouble is that with very long sessions, it gets too dense and the dashing looks quite odd.
Fair enough. Okay, but so I mean, Jeremy, is this going to look okay with both of those things being orange?
Yeah, it should be fine. I mean, it'll be labeled. I think it'll be okay.
Okay, all right. Okay, then we have a solution for this. Did you have a chance to work on those icons yet, Jeremy?
I don't know if I don't think I have the notebook from Tally yet. I'll have to do that offline.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think that's everything for Jeremy, so far as I know.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
So we had one last thing to discuss.
Yeah.
It should be very, very fast. So basically, we had.
Not with Jeremy.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
He
Right,
wants to.
I'm going to leave, right?
Yep. See you.
Okay.
See you
All right.
later.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Jeremy.
By the way, so, one of our viewers is asking about currying of NetEncode. I don't think that makes sense. Yeah, it is curried already. It's curried, feeding in its data. I don't think it makes any sense to curry in its options, because I think that's, since it sometimes doesn't have options, it's better to have the options in the main sort of package. Okay, sorry. What were you going to say?
So the last design discussion we wanted was, we had a discussion previously about different precision for NetTrain, and we previously thought that for target device we can have like V100, because the V100 GPU supports very optimally like float 16 training. Okay. And we've decided that we think working precision with a string argument like rel 32 or rel 16 is the correct way of doing this.
Oh boy, for what is this for? This is for NetTrain? For
NetTrain.
The reason for that. Another viewer question here. What about the dashes for? The problem is that if the dashes are all, I mean, if you scale the dashes.
Well, the problem is that if it gets very jagged, then the dashes end up looking.
Yeah, I know. Look, the dashes end up not even,
It's hard to even see continuity.
Right. It's like putting rulers on the edge of the coastline or something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the NetTrain thing. So what is the issue? The issue is target device.
Okay, so the issue is that we want to be able to control what precision we do training at. And it can be very useful to do lower precision training.
Okay, so why can't I say, so if I just say working precision arrow 8, you're not happy with that?
No, because we only support certain discrete types.
And it's not in decimal, so it's not,
it's not decimal.
Places. It's 16
like rel 32 or the
How
rel
on
16.
earth are we going to, but I mean, if you think about it, the working precision, is an option which is documented on its own page, and what on earth are we going to say on that page about this?
Well, if it's a string, that's called rel 32. We can put a little note, like for NetTrain, rel 32 and rel 16.
Try and sell it to Mark for working precision in general. It's not completely stupid for working precision in general.
We could call it training precision and have it be a different symbol.
Well, is it in fact working precision or is it training precision?
I mean, it's doing that.
Precision sounds like a different kind of thing.
Well, it is working precision because we can also do evaluation at that precision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So listen. To my mind, that working precision thing with a type like that is something that will be relevant when the compiler exists anyway.
That's true.
Why don't you send out a note to the numerics group and just say you want to do this for this NetTrain thing? Maybe it's relevant for something more general. Does anybody have a fundamental objection to this?
Okay.
T-numerics.
I think it's an L-numerics.
Okay.
And you may get back some venomous stuff. I have no idea.
Toxic bile.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else we need to go over?
Not for now.
Great.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. See you all soon.
Okay.
Can you say who sent me? Oh, that was in the chat. Okay, I need that plot.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I got it. Okay. Cheers.
Okay. See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.